showing. I'm holding up screen share and for some, there we go. I see it now. All right,
There
can
you go.
everybody? Okay. All right, thank goodness. Can everyone hear me? Good. All right, everybody. Hi, my name is Dr. Liz Musil, and I am the IRB coordinator for Columbia Southern. And today we're just going to give you an overview about IRB. It's lots of information and lots of details, so don't be concerned about that. We just want to embark that you've got an understanding of the idea of what it's about, why it exists, and in your journey, you will be getting to know the IRB process in greater detail. And we do have notes and help for you there. So don't be overly concerned. You know, we just want to let you know what this is all about. Okay. So what is IRB? IRB is the Institutional Review Board, and it's responsible for ensuring that all CSU research complies with the university's ethical standards as well as US federal regulation. So there are laws guiding how you conduct research and that you do it in an ethical manner. So IRB at CSU bases its goals on the following. You want to protect human subjects, you want to develop and maintain an ethical research environment, and you want to ensure that the researchers are qualified to conduct the research and to make sure that the research that you're conducting has the potential to add value to the academic community and society. Okay, so there is a whole team or membership of the IRB board. It's full-time faculty and the academic program director. The provost of the university is a non-voting member who enforces the graduate research experience and compliance. And at least one member of the IRB has a scientific academic interest and one member has a non-scientific member interest. All IRB members will complete what's called city training for IRB members. The IRB chair is responsible for reporting IRB membership information to the provost. Okay. So what is the purpose of IRB? The purpose of IRB is to assure in advance, before you do anything, before you solicit your participants, before you go out there and talk to anybody, in advance and by periodic review, that appropriate steps are taken to protect the rights and welfare of human participating as subjects in research. Prior to performing data collection and submitting your institutional review board application, each student must complete the university mandated human subject research training offered by Collaborative Institutional Training Initiative, the CITI program. So basically, once your proposal is approved, okay, you're going to start talking to your chair and say, you know, my proposal is approved. I'm going to need to do my research next. And you will go, this is an online training program, the CITI program training. We will tell you which class to take. You complete it online. It takes a couple of hours, 2, maybe 3 hours. There's a lot of information there that will teach you about ethical research, conducting research, rights and wrongs, and all that good stuff. You'll earn a certificate, and then you'll progress in applying for IRB for your study. Okay, so steps to IRB approval, and you will have reminders of this, so don't be concerned. Your chair will guide you. Your proposal is approved. You're going to complete the CITI training. You will go to the DWRC where there are IRB documents and instructions. And there's a very, very comprehensive site up there where you will have examples of documents to complete, an application, things like that. You work with your chair to complete the application and supporting documentation. What's important to us is that the application is fully completed, that we don't have a lot of blanks or anything, or we're going to send it back. It's going to delay the process. You also want to make sure you have all the supporting documentation that you need. And again, we have comprehensive instructions online, but we can't give you any kind of approval until we have a full package. Okay. So the chair is going to check your package. and submit it to IRB on your behalf. So then IRB receives your package, they're going to review it. If there's any missing sections or parts, I'm the IRB coordinator. I'm going to go back to your chair and say, I'm missing this, so the form doesn't have this completed. They will contact you. You will fill it out. Once we have a completed package, we do our best to get you approval between like 24 and 48 hours. Most of the time it happens. So really, really try to get you approved and on your way as quickly as possible. And that way you can go ahead and begin your study. The last thing we want to do is delay you. We want to enable you to move forward in the program, but we got to just make sure all the boxes are checked and all that kind of stuff, right? So IRB's ethics review and approval is required before participant recruitment, data collection, or data set access. Okay, so you cannot do anything without IRB approval. Not only is it a big no-no and against the policy of the university, I don't believe it's legal. So you don't want to look at any data sets. You don't want to recruit participants. You don't want to collect any data. CSU will not grant credit for any student work that was conducted without IRB ethics approval or failed to comply with IRB requirements. So another issue is, let's say you go ahead and you get IRB approval and there's some changes, you start to, go to the process, and then you're like, I said I was going to do one-on-one interviews, but maybe I want to do an online interview instead, but I didn't get approval for that. You can't just change. You have to go back to IRB and get the alteration approved again. So just remember, you have to stick to the requirements. Whoopsie, sorry about that. Go back. You'll have to, you cannot, first of all, you'll have to have the approval before you do anything. And then once you're into getting your data and collecting your data, if for some reason you need to slightly change how you collect the data or what it is that you're going to do, and it's different from what you had approved, you have to go back to IRB. It is also unacceptable that you change the terms of your agreement. Okay, so that's kind of it. So just so you know, all your IRB activities are documented and all records relating to normal IRB are maintained within your student file. Documentation relating to your specific research is maintained for a minimum of 3 years after it's done. There's a couple of privacy issues you're going to need to comply with. Confidentiality, protecting the identity of the subjects who voluntarily provide information for your research. Okay. This is handled in your research design of the project. And the second issue is invasion of privacy, accessing personal information without permission or consent. Okay. So there's something called informed consent, which you will ask the participant to sign. So you are adhering to privacy and ethics. So again, all we're really trying to convey to you today is that there are some kind of stringent requirements with regard to ethics and training and completing forms, and just don't deviate. If you have any questions, it's better to go to your chair before you do something that's out of what you have approved, and it could have consequences, and we're not trying to scare you, but this is not something we're kind of doing on our own. There's also federal laws behind it. So we just want to make sure that we do everything properly as much as we can all the time. Okay. So there is a detailed written process for all IRB applications and specific forms to support the application. IRB documents are available in the DWRC. There is going to be on the menu an IRB folder, and you'll just click on it. There's a bunch of forms, examples of such things as the application, the introductory email, the confidentiality statement, informed consent for quantitative and qualitative certificates of originality. They're for your reference. You can put your package together, give it to your chair. Your chair will review it, okay? All right. Okay, I'm going. There we go. So this is kind of a click of what you would see in the DWRC. The menu item might be, here it says IRB forms. I think it's a little bit further down now. But all areas of the application, like I mentioned before, have to be filled in completely. Something blank is not an option, and that will delay your approval process. Make sure also that you have all of your forms in the completed package. Your chair will check with that. If I'm missing a form or document or anything, we're going to hold up the process until we receive it. So then you're going to have this list, instructions, the application form, examples of all these other forms that have to go, okay, with your documents. So we're here to guide you as much as we possibly can. So please use the documents in the folder and follow the IRB process as you work within the parameters of IRB approval. Your chair will guide you in this process. Your dissertation chair will be submitting the documents to the IRB Columbia Southern mailbox. The chair will act on your behalf as an intermediary. But if you want to contact me personally, just because you have some kind of question, feel free to do so. My email is down here. And that's basically everything I can tell you kind of in a nutshell, okay? Is there any questions?
Thank you very much, Dr. Musil. We still have a couple of minutes if anybody has any questions about the IRB process or anything else we've talked about today. No?
No.
Okay, again, thank you, Dr. Musil. And
enjoy, everybody. Great to meet you.
You have a great rest of your day.
You too.
Great. Okay, moving along. We've only got about an hour left. The next topic is chapter 4, and Dr. Goldwasser is going to talk about that. Dr. Goldwasser, be sure that you introduce yourself, and you can start when you're ready.
Okay, should I share my PowerPoints?
Yeah, share your screen.
Let's see if it works out here.
Yeah, here it comes.
Yeah, can you see it?
Yes, we can see it. Thank you.
Okay, great. All right, well, hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Bob Goldwasser, and we'll be talking about Chapter 4 today. Let me first, if you don't mind, introduce myself a bit. I'm got my MBA degree and my DBA degree while working full-time and while raising my family. So I have a good understanding of the challenges that all of our DBA students face. I've been a dissertation chairperson for over 10 years, and also I've been teaching marketing and management courses for a number of years. And over this 10-year period, over 60 of my DBA students have successfully completed their dissertations. So that means that I've got the experience in helping my students get over the hump and work through the obstacles that that naturally come during this dissertation process. So today, when we talk about Chapter 4, I'm going to talk about the two key components, and that's the data collection part and then the data analysis. I'm not going to get too much deep into the statistical analysis because Dr. Weike already did that a little while before. But let's talk about data collection first. One of the tips that I give my DBA students is to identify your sample population early, because if once you identify your sample population, it'll guide the direction of your study and will help you sort of put all the pieces together. Use your network of contacts to find a cooperative sample population. What that means is that think about your contacts, whether they're at the place of where you work, or there are any associations that you might be member of. You also can possibly tap into some of your colleagues use associations or contacts they might have. But it's important that you identify a group of people who will be cooperative with your study. If you're doing a qualitative study, you'll probably need at least 10 to 15 people who will agree to be interviewed on your particular topic. If you're doing a quantitative study, you might need 100 to 150 people who will agree to cooperate and complete an email survey. Now, as far as of getting those people, usually different associations, that's what I found, members are agreeable to participating and helping a fellow member in their research studies. That's one thing that's usually very effective. Sometimes colleagues at work is an effective way to do it. But you shouldn't fret if you sort of think, wow, who am I going to get to participate in my study? There are companies that you can use, and many students use these companies. We're going to go over with a few of them shortly, but there are options available. So if you do have questions, concerns about your sample population, communicate them to your dissertation chairperson, and they can help you find a solution. I'll also leave you my contact information at the end of this presentation. You're welcome to contact me also, and I can always give you some tips as to some ideas as to who you can get to cooperate in your study. But the bottom line, I think, is that you can always resolve this. And you can always find it. For some students, it's easier. They already have their contacts in mind, or they've already even asked people if they cooperate with them in the study. Others, it's a little bit more challenging, but don't worry. There's always a solution. You're always able to work something out and to get through the finish line. Now, last point on this slide is that depending on who your sample population is, for instance, if you're going to be surveying employees at a particular company, you may need to get a letter from the organization which authorizes you to interview or survey their employees. But that's something that's relatively easy to get, but it's usually a requirement as part of your IRB application. Now, these are some of the alternative options that my students have used over the years. These are companies that they charge a fee, so that's something you have to be aware of. The fee is in the hundreds of dollars, a few $100s, depending on how big your survey is. So it's not too expensive. However, it's very effective. Companies like SurveyMonkey, Sentiment, User Interviews, Qualtrics, or and there are a number of others that are out there. And that what you do is you speak with the representative from the company. You tell them who you're planning to survey. And say, for instance, you're doing a study of registered nurses in the southeastern United States, and you want to send out emails, survey to 200 registered nurses, because you want to get their thoughts on the impact of the COVID pandemic on their job and their job situation. So SurveyMonkey can, and all of these companies, they can help you. They've got, each one has their own a database of millions of their people who are interested in responding to surveys, and once you submit your survey questions to the company, they can send out the survey, get back the results within days. So it shortens the process considerably, but again, there is some expense to it. So anybody have any questions at this point about about data collection and sample populations? All right, well, let's keep going. Now, once you've collected your data, you've got all your survey results. That's the point where then you do your statistical analysis. Each dissertation will have a different statistical analysis depending on what you want to show and how you want to show it. But what I wanted to focus on now is what you present and how you present it in your chapter 4. First of all, it's very important that you only present and describe your findings. In chapter 4, there's no discussion or analysis of the findings, no conclusions reached. In chapter 4, you're just presenting the results. Secondly, important to work closely with your dissertation chairperson, making sure that you satisfy their demands, also the demands of the committee members, because they're basically the gatekeepers, and if they're satisfied, then you're in good shape. So it's important to be open with them. Talk to your dissertation chairperson. Tell them the type of statistical analysis you're planning to do, how you're planning to display it and portray it. You might be able to provide them an outline in advance and rough draft as you move through. And then very important that you organize the data and prepare it, make it into a visually attractive format so that the reader can easily understand who's responding to your surveys or your interviews, the makeup of that population, and then the results, how they responded to the questions. You want to search for themes when you're presenting your data. Use tables, graphs, and charts to show the different frequencies, percentages, standard deviations, ranges. You want to be scholarly, but understandable. And this is sort of a fine line to handle, because your dissertation is a formal academic research paper, so it has to meet the standards of the APA 7th edition. And but on the other hand, it has to be written in a way that the reader can understand the analysis you've done and what's taken place. Because not everyone that reads your work is a statistical expert. Keep that in mind. It's important to to tell a story at the start of chapter 4. You want to again give the reader the background of your study. Although sometimes you might feel it's repetitive. You say, why do I have to give the background of the study and explain about the methodology when I did that in chapter 3 and I did that in chapter 1 and I did that maybe a little bit in chapter 2, but each chapter sort of stands on its own. There are a lot of people down the road that when they might come to read your dissertation and they won't read the entire dissertation. Many of them go directly to chapter 4 because that's really the meat of your study. And they can look at the numbers, they can look at the analysis, and they can come to a conclusion right away. So by having that introductory information and the explanation about your research questions, your research topic, your methodology, it gives them a little background before they dive into the meat of the study. And a lot of experts, they don't really need to go to chapter 5 to read your conclusions because they can reach the conclusions pretty quickly by looking at your data. So it's important that your chapter 4 stands alone with introduction, methodology, and then the statistical analysis explained clearly and completely. Oh, let's see. Other things we want to say, Again, you want to present facts and figures only. I highly recommend reading other dissertations that have been completed and approved by other students. The CSU library has a wealth of dissertations. You can go into the DWRC and get copies. Excuse me. It's also best to read dissertations that your particular chairperson has supervised, because then you'll understand what your chairperson is looking for and what they're expecting, the quality of the work, the length, the style, the format. So it's a great resource, and I encourage my students to read at least 2 or 3 other dissertations, see how the other students handled chapter 4 and other chapters. And then also, again, your subjective interpretation, your analysis of the results, your conclusions, your recommendations for practice, recommendations for future research. All this comes in chapter 5. So you don't want to include any of that in chapter 4 yet. Again, these are the tips that I've already mentioned, but just in review, be sure your presentation is well organized and clear. And be sure that your chapter 4 is complete and that it tells the entire story with an introduction, with an explanation of the research topic, the questions, the methodology, and then the data collection and the statistical analysis. So again, chapter 4 is one of the most important chapters. Now, I did mention the DWRC, the Doctoral Writing and Research Center. This is something I hope that all of you are very, very familiar with, because it's growing by the day. Each week, instructors are adding information to it, information that can be very helpful to you on chapter 4, but on all the chapters of your dissertation. So this is really a terrific resource, and I can't recommend it more to get into this. And no matter what chapter you're writing, there's a wealth of information here that can help you get through the process. So, excuse me again, here's my contact information, my email address. I'm happy to respond to any of your questions along the way. If you have need some advice or some ideas, I'm happy to help. Your dissertation chairperson should be your first point of contact, but again, it's never a bad idea to get a second opinion.
Very
So
good. Thank you.
that's my presentation, Jodine. So Dr. Birchall, so any questions? I'm here for questions.
Thank you, Dr. Goldwasser. Anybody have any last minute questions for Dr. Goldwasser? I can attest that he's always very helpful. If you need him, you can reach out to him. Okay. Well, I don't see any, so we're about to do our final session here. Thanks again, Dr. Goldwasser. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Yeah, I think I
next
need
up,
to stop sharing. Huh?
Well,
Yeah.
I think Dr. Tucker can just start and you'll stop.
Okay.
Either
great.
way is fine. Dr. Tucker?
Yes, ma'am.
Please. Hi there.
Hi.
Please introduce yourself and start your presentation when you're ready.
Absolutely. Well, hello, everybody. I'm Dr. Jan Tucker, and it's good to see so many familiar names on there. I see several of you that have been in our pre-dissertation mentorship program, so that's awesome to see. So we're going to jump in here to chapter 5. You guys are really lucky. Those of you that know me are probably going, oh, Lord, it's Tucker. She talks forever. But you're in luck, because Dr. Corcoran and I had to do another residency this morning, so I'm almost talked out. So this should be pretty quick. Hang in there with me. So chapter 5, Dr. Bob said chapter 4 is one of the most important, and that may be true, but chapter 5 is the fun chapter. This is where you finally get to put all these pieces together. So for a long time now, you've been working on different chapters and different sections and trying to put it all together. This is where it finally comes together. This is where a lot of you are going to get your aha moment. This is where it finally all starts to make sense. So we're not going to get too far down in the weeds here, but I want to kind of show you where you're going to end up so that you can make a plan to get here. So chapter 5 is when you finally get to tell your story. The hard part's over. You've already done your data analysis. You've already rejected the null or failed to reject the null. You've already pulled your hair out with Dr. Wyke or Dr. Boyd working on the analyzing the data and figuring out what the heck it means. That's all done. So now you get to tell what it all means. There's 3 main sections in chapter 5. The first one's a summary section. A lot of stuff you're just going to reiterate from chapters 1 through 4. You're going to kind of relate it back to what you found in those other chapters to kind of set up this chapter. And then you're going to talk about theoretical and professional implications. Now, as you've heard throughout your presentations today, we do what's called an applied dissertation at CSU. And it's a hybrid between a theoretical-based dissertation, which you'd find in a lot of PhD programs, and a practical-based dissertation, which you'd find in like a DBA program. Well, we put them together and we do both, which is great because you're getting kind of the best of all worlds here. So the first thing you'll do is you'll tie back the results of your study and what you found to the theories that you set out in the earlier chapters. So in chapter 1, you talked about the different theories that are going to frame your research. And then in chapter 2, you wrote pages and pages and pages about different research and theories and how it all relates to your topic. Now you've got to go back, now that you have the results, and say how all that works. So for example, let's say you were doing a study on motivational theories, and you said that Maslow's hierarchy of needs is one of the theories that frames your research. Well, now you go back and you say how you can contribute to that. So you said that those different needs were going to be part of what you found in your study. So how does that happen? And then you're going to talk about professional implications as well. So that's the theory part. And then from a professional standpoint, from a practical standpoint, what could somebody do with this information? So if your study was in the retail industry and you were interviewing or surveying retail employees, and you found that retail employees' job satisfaction is really low based on the age group that they belong to. So, millennials, baby boomers, whatever it is. So that's great. You wrote about that in chapter 4. Now, what does it mean here? What could a manager in the retail industry do with this information? What could employees in the industry do with that? What could future researchers do with this? So that's the first part. And then you take it a step further over in the recommendations. So earlier, probably when you were talking in chapter 1, or you were hearing about chapter 1 today, they probably told you that a really good place to figure out where your gap is and kind of what your topic should be is to go find somebody's dissertation that's similar in scope and topic that you want to do, and scroll all the way down to the bottom, to the end, and they will have a section of conclusions and recommendations for future research. So they've done their study and they're saying future researchers should do A, B, C, and D. Well, guess what? That A, B, C, and D, that's the gap in their research. You could use that for your study. And then here, you're going to do the same thing for future researchers. So I found this. I didn't get to this part. Somebody else could take this and move with it. So it may be something like you did a quantitative study to see if there's a relationship between job satisfaction and worker engagement, and you found that there wasn't one. And so what should future researchers do? Well, maybe what they should do is interview employees and find out why there's not a relationship. And what are some practical recommendations? Well, if companies are spending a whole lot of money doing like team building exercises to get workers more engaged so that they're more satisfied with their job and they're not leaving their job, and you found out that workers don't care about that, those are some recommendations you can make. Stop wasting your time on these team building things and find out what really does motivate employees. What helps them be satisfied with their job. Maybe it's money, maybe it's fulfillment, maybe it's work hours. Those are all things that you could recommend that somebody does later on. So you're going to kind of refer back to the significance of the study. Way back in chapter 1, you defined the problem statement, purpose statement, and the significance of your study. Like, what's the point? This is where you get to go in and say, okay, I told you this was going to be the point. This is really the point. And then you want to find out and talk about how you could generalize your study. Your study is going to be pretty specific. So it might be, like I said, retail, employees in the Atlanta, Georgia area. It's a real kind of confined, limited study, and you want to be able to generalize that to other areas. So how could you do that? How could you do that in a broader context? And you're basically just demonstrating the value of your work. I tell my students, answer this question, so what? If somebody came to you and said, okay, you just spent all this time, all these resources writing this dissertation, why? What was the end result? What's the takeaway? Can you sum it up for me in a sentence? So really get down to the nuts and bolts of what it was all about. And then you want to anticipate any questions on the value of your study before they're asked in your defense. We're going to talk about the defense in just a minute. But tie everything up in a nice red bow when you get to this chapter, and think about questions that somebody might ask you about your manuscript or during the defense, your committee members. If it's not really super clear, if you haven't drawn that real specific line yet, do it here. And that'll make life a whole lot easier when you get on to the next phase, to the defense. Okay, so tips for writing chapter 5, go back to chapter 2. Chapter 2 is one of those chapters that people either love it or hate it. It's a lot of writing, it's a lot of analyzing things and putting them all together. But it is crucial to set the stage for your dissertation. And when you get to chapter 5, you have to go back and talk about how that literature that you said was related to your study really is related to it. And we also, in the DWRC, you'll see a notice about this. We're running a webinar on August 10th at, I think, 6 p.m. Central Time, where we're going to go through the lit review and tools and tips of how you could organize it, how it's used, how you can use it throughout the entire dissertation process. This is one of those chapters where if you do it right and you think about it in broader context of how it's going to relate to your whole dissertation, it'll make the whole process a lot smoother. So mark that on your calendar and go on the DWRC and see the announcement about that. How many times a day have you heard focus on your problem and purpose, right? You've probably heard that a dozen times. Get you a little sticky note and write out your problem statement and stick it on your computer and make sure that everything that you've done throughout your dissertation relates back to that problem. It's really easy to start going down rabbit holes and going on all these different directions. Keep it focused. Remember what your problem was. You've identified this problem and you've identified how this study is going to address that problem. So stay focused on it. Now, chapter 5, I say it's the fun chapter, and Dr. Bob alluded to this too. It's much more subjective than the other chapters. You actually get to kind of put in your interpretation and your opinion, but you need to use data to back it up. But you're going to use your own data a lot of times. So you'll go back and pull information from other chapters to support your interpretation. So if you're making a statement about what somebody could do with this research, go back and reference some of the stuff in your other chapters. So this is it's a broader scope. It really is kind of tying everything together, but this is not the time to get lax on your scholarly writing and the content. I would make an argument that this is one of the most important chapters to have perfect. And if you get down to the end, you're tired, you don't want to do this anymore, and you send your chair a 7-page chapter 5, they're going to go back to work. That's not what this is all about. Tie it all together, follow the template, and you'll see what's there. And think about your upcoming defense. Again, this is where you end up. So when your committee and your chair and everybody have read your dissertation, chapter 5 is the end. That's it. And when you're presenting in the oral defense, guess what? That's also where you end. So make sure you cover everything that you can think of there so that you're not asked those questions. If you've already got it covered, there won't be a whole lot to ask. So final checklist for chapter 5. One thing is the verbiage. You heard earlier your proposal, that's chapters 1, 2, and 3. That's what you're going to do for your research before you get IRB approval. That's all going to be in future tense when you talk about your study. You're going to get IRB approval. You're going to collect the data. You're going to analyze the data. Well, now, as soon as you've already analyzed and collected the data, now it's a dissertation. Now you have to go back through the proposal and make sure anywhere where it's talking about your study, it's now in past tense because you've already collected the data. You've already received IRB approval. You've already done all that. And the reason I'm bringing that up now is because if you are mindful that you're going to have to do this when you're writing that proposal, chapters 1, 2, and 3, you may be able to massage some of the sentences and some of the words so that you don't have to do a whole lot of this at the end. Chapter 2 should already be in the right tenses because you're talking about what other people did. You're talking about other researchers and their studies. So it'll already be probably in the right tense. And a lot of sections 1 and 3 will be because it's only when you're talking about your study what you're going to do. So be mindful of that. Check your headings, the table of contents, the page numbers. If you use the template from the get-go, it's pretty easy to keep everything situated. I can't tell you how many students have panicked at the end because that table of contents gets unlinked, the page numbers disappear, there's all this weird stuff that shows up. If that happens, the writing coach or your chair can help you untangle it, but be mindful of it and kind of keep it straight from the beginning. The other thing is your references and citations. There's a lot of editing that goes on through this process. And some things that are going to be deleted and some things are going to be added. Keep that reference list up to date. And you can use tools to help you with that. Grammarly, ReciteWorks that's one of my favorites where you can upload your paper there and it'll tell you where there are errors in your citations and reference matches. There's a free version that'll work for so many pages, I can't remember, but it's relatively inexpensive to get to do a final check too. I can't remember what it is, but like $10 for a month or something, you could get it at the end. Use the editing features on Word. I can't tell you how many times I've gotten a document from a student and it's got all those squiggly lines that Word gives them. And I'm like, how did you miss all the spelling? And they're like, oh, I didn't realize the editing was turned off. Go turn spelling and grammar check on from the beginning. So check, double check, triple check before you send that final document to your chair. The other thing that happens is once we sign off on it, so once chair, committee, APD, the dean, everybody signed it, we can't change anything. So I've had students come back a year later and say, I don't like my title. Can we change it? Nope. I had one student say, oh, my daughter's mad at me because I didn't acknowledge her husband, my son-in-law, in the dedication. Can I add it now? Nope. I had another one, I found a spelling error. Can I fix it? Nope. So once it's signed, once it's done, and it's out there for forever. So just make sure that you've checked, double checked, triple checked. See, I told you that was pretty painless. So let me take a breath. And anybody have any questions about chapter 5? Let me show you actually. That's a good idea. Okay, did this bring me hopefully to, okay, so when you're in the dissertation, the DWRC, when you come down here and it's under applied dissertation and you go into chapter 5, in here is a shortened version of this presentation. Actually, it may be longer since I'm talking so fast today, and a PowerPoint. So you've got that there. The theoretical and professional practice, those implications that I was telling you about, that can be tough for students to understand how that works. So go in there, we've got some resources. And here's a checklist for chapter 5 before you submit it to your chair. We have one of these in every chapter, these checklists, chapters 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So use them kind of like as your rubric and double check. Now we're about to go into the oral defense, but it's in the same folder. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of tell you where this is. In here, in this oral defense document, which again, this is under chapter 5 in oral defense, there is a document that walks you through the process, which I'm going to talk to you about in a minute, step by step of what to expect in the oral defense. So it'll tell you, you're going to log on, this is what's going to happen. There's also some sample practice oral defense questions in there. We don't have questions that we write ahead of time. It's very organic and it kind of depends on what your study's about. But over time, we've put together a list that'll at least give you kind of some things to think about. Also, and here's a copyright release form. When you're done with chapter 5, if you want to give us permission to publish your dissertation, the abstract in the library, sign that and send it to your chair. And if any of you, when you get done, if you would give us permission to use your dissertation as a sample in the DWRC, there's a ton of them, not a ton, but there's several in there, and we'd love to add more. You can just sign this and send it to your chair, and we'll take out all your identifying information, but it can really help other students. I'm sure you found, if you've gone in there and looked at the samples, how helpful it is. And then there's something in here about publishing with ProQuest. It's free, and you can read through that, and there's some links when you're ready to publish your dissertation. Okay, so now for real, I will stop and see any questions about chapter 5 before we move on to oral defense.
Any questions, anybody?
All right, moving on. This part's quick, people. I have like one slide on each one. You're good. So what we're going to talk about here is the oral defense, which I have written here as the oral presentation. And the reason for that is because that's really what it is. It's you presenting your long, hard work, all the stuff that you've done, you get to present it here. There's really nothing to defend. I'll show you that in a minute. Or there shouldn't be. And then the PDMP, and I was really happy to see several of our PDMP students, former and current, here today. So that's great. And when we get to that in a minute, if any of you wanted to share your experiences with students who haven't decided if they're going to do that or not, that would be great. Okay, so oral presentation, your manuscript's done, your chair's happy, your committee's happy, ready to go, and your defense is scheduled. Now, here's how this will work. Your chair will schedule your final defense. So they will determine when you are a month or two out from defense. Now, it depends on kind of the time of year. Like right now, when there's so many people defending, when they're trying to get out before graduation, get the defense in, we have to schedule these about 3 months in advance. So if your chair comes to you and says, hey, you know, we need to set up your defense for October, and you're like, whoa, I'm just finishing chapter 4. They know that that's okay. They have a plan for you, so you'll be okay. Like I think this month, I think the Dr. Jafke told me there were 19 oral defenses in the month of July. I mean, that's crazy, right? So when your chair tells you, you know, it's time to schedule, they notify Dr. Jafke it's time, and then you'll be sent a list of different times and dates. And it's usually like a 2-week period of time. Dr. Jafke's great at picking a whole bunch of times, and you just click the ones that you're available. You know, your chair and your committee have to find it too. And then when we find one that everybody works, it's scheduled. So once it's scheduled, you're going to prepare with your chair. So there is a PowerPoint in the template, just like there is for the prospectus, just like there is for the dissertation, and it's in the DWRC, of course, and you can use that. And then we also have some examples in there of people who have taken the template, which is kind of boring, and put in some good visual aids to make it a lot more appealing. So you can look at that too. So just like you have all through this process, when you get your PowerPoint complete, you're going to send it to your chair to go over it, and they'll give you pointers. And make sure that you have downloaded and practiced using Ring Central. I think we're using Zoom now, but Ring Central is what you use in meetings with your chair. And if you've gone to like Write On and Research On sessions, I think they use Ring Central. So you're already familiar with it, but you probably haven't done it in the presenter mode. So set up defense prep with your chairs, and your chair will have you upload your slides, kind of go through it, whatever you need to do to make yourself feel comfortable about doing this. And we'll do that with you as many times as you want. We've had, most students only need 1 or 2 times. I shared this earlier. One of my students who just defended last month, she set up 8 defense practices with me the month before her defense. And I kept saying, you know this, we don't need to do this. She's like, nope, I want to do it. It's like, okay. So then the very last one, it was the day before her defense. She says, what happens if I just freeze? What if I have a brain freeze and I can't remember anything? And I said, I have heard this presentation so many times, I can do it rote. I don't even need any notes to do it. So no worry there. And of course, she didn't need that to happen. It was great. But anyway, you'll be prepared, I promise. So what happens the day of the defense? So the day of the defense, you and your chair get in a couple minutes early. and you get set, you test your audio, you test your video, you upload your slides, and then the rest of the committee comes in. So it's you, your chair, your committee member, and then a third committee member, which is either the APD or the APD's designee. All the people there have read your dissertation, so they're familiar with your study. And once you're ready, your chair will introduce you, the recording will start, the chair will introduce you, and then your team goes on mute and off camera. And this part gets a little off-putting because you're on camera, you're presenting, and nobody's saying anything because we're all on mute taking notes, and you just go through all of your slides. When you get to the end of your slides, you'll say, I'm opening it up for questions, or this concludes my presentation. At that point, the whole team comes back on camera, off of mute, and there's a round robin asking you questions. Nobody is there to trip you up. That's not their goal. And again, if you've answered all the hard stuff already in your presentation and in your manuscript, this part's pretty easy. The goal here is to get further understanding of what you did and how you did it and kind of get your opinion about it. It is not to trip you up. We will not recommend you go to defense until we are very, very sure that you're ready. Here's the thing, we're an egotistical bunch and we want our students to succeed. And none of us want to have students go to a defense if they're not ready. And we're not 99.9% sure that they're going to pass. So we've got you on that. Listen to your chair. The flip side of that, if you're like, I need to defend this month, I don't want to go next term, and your chair says no, listen to them. There's a reason for that. So the whole process takes about an hour. You've got about 30 minutes to present. If you take 15, fine. If you take 40, that's okay too. And then there's usually about 30 minutes of questions. And then you leave the presentation and you go and take a deep breath and, kind of nerves shaking there a little bit, and then we talk. And your chair is your advocate here. So the committee members will ask questions, I didn't understand what they meant by this, or they talked about this, but where is this in your dissertation? And of course, your chair's read it a gazillion times. We know this, and we'll say, oh, look on page 43, or this was in their dissertation, but they didn't talk about it. Oh, well, they meant this, that kind of stuff. So after that, we vote, and the three options are approved, no changes needed, approved, but there's some small changes, or not approved. Now, approved with changes is what we're always going for. And that just means from that point, we call you, Dr. Jones, congratulations. We send all the paperwork over to Michelle Conway. She takes it from there. Approved with changes does happen sometimes. Don't panic if this does. Usually it's something very minor, because remember, we've seen this over and over and over again. So we've caught anything major, but we're human. So sometimes stuff gets a little bit missed. It's usually something you can fix really quick. And I'll give you a perfect example. We had a student who I was the committee, and I'd ask her about what she did for triangulation of data, which you need in a qual study. And she rattled off exactly what she did. And so it was obvious that she did it, but she forgot to put that in her analysis section when she was talking about it. So it was just a matter of her going and typing up that paragraph that she just told me about, and we were done. So just again, kind of let you know how that goes. Now, people always ask, has anybody, not passed? Here's the thing. If you don't show up, we can't pass you. If you don't talk or present, we can't pass you. But we're here to help you. We're here to support you. If you do get stuck, and this has happened too, even though we're on mute, we'll come off and nudge you a little bit. I mean, I had a student do this, and he's just like, it's like I've never seen my dissertation before. I don't remember what I was supposed to do. And I just came on, nudged him a little bit, off he went. So, and then again, we see a lot of these. So anything you can do to pretty up your slides and make them interesting and not just read from them, have your notes somewhere else. You can have them on another monitor. Some students have them on their phone, they print them out. Whatever you need to do, go through your slides and then anticipate potential questions. Know your stats. We're not going to ask you to do math during the defense, but we are going to ask you what it means. If you have a slide that says, your p-value is 0.28, and then you just go on to the next slide, that's probably a question we're going to ask you. Well, what does that mean? How does that relate to your study? Those kind of things. So, okay, that was the quick version. I'm going to talk just a minute about the PDMP, but I want to stop here because the oral defense is one of those areas where students get really anxious. If I ever had a student that said, I'm not nervous about it, I think there's something wrong, because everybody gets nervous at this, but I do want to kind of at least let you know what to expect so that you hopefully alleviate a little bit of nerves. So before we move on to the pre-dissertation mentoring program, does anyone have any questions, concerns about Chapter 5 or the oral defense? All right, you can think about it. Pre-dissertation mentorship program. This is a program that we've been piloting for actually a couple of years, and we've got it down to a pretty good science now. What this is you work with 2 pre-dissertation mentors, that's myself and Dr. Corcoran, before you enroll in the DST courses. We have group meetings. They're not every Thursday night, but during the session, the PDMP process lasts 8 to 10 weeks. And during that, we probably have 4 or 5 group meetings on Thursday night. And during that, we give you some instructions of how to get started. We help you choose your topic. We help you write your problem and purpose statement. We help you write your research questions and select your methodology. And we work on the prospectus. So you saw that earlier. We actually work on that. You also have individual meetings with us whenever you need them. We have a Discord channel that we use because you're not in a class. You're still taking your didactic classes when you're in this. So we have a Discord channel where you can communicate with other students who are in the program and us, and upload documents for us to review. So why would you do this? Okay, A, it's free. B, it really helps you get the foundation pieces before you start the dissertation process. And what we found over the last 2 years is students who actively participate in this program are shaving 4 to 6 months off their dissertation process. They can usually get through the dissertation part in about a year. Where our students who don't, it can take them 18 months or more. Not always, there's not a direct correlation between that, but what we do is we get those foundational pieces in before you have to actually start the DST courses. And we beat you up in that. And I'm sure if Randy or Ryan wanted to say something, they would say that they did get kind of beat up during that process, just a little bit.
Yeah, I'm happy to. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I would urge anyone to do the PDMP. There's so much alleviation of stress from the amount of pre-work that went into it, and then the guidance that you get along the way it's really just the best. So I can't see a reason not to do it.
Thank you for that. Yeah, Randy, I'm gonna call him out a little bit. You go back and forth, and so we're giving feedback on his stuff, and he got one and he was like, wait a minute, what's wrong here? This one wasn't hacked up. And we're like, yeah, you got it. It's there, you got it. So he actually, give him a little bit of kudos here. He just passed his prospectus and he is being assigned a chair. I thought it was gonna be yesterday. Sorry, Randy, it'll be Monday. And he will start on the dissertation. Yeah, so what happens is while you're still taking your didactic courses, you're working on these foundational pieces. And once your prospectus gets like it's in pretty good shape, then we go ahead and assign you a chair, and you will work with the chair to get your prospectus approved, and you'll start taking the DST courses along with the didactic courses because you kind of work ahead because you're already ahead of the game. So if you're interested, let me show you where all this is. There's a lot more information in here in the DWRC. It's under, you'll see a tab on the front, which is pre-dissertation students. Here's that Lit Review webinar I told you about. That information's there. So here's a little video and PowerPoint on kind of getting started with your topic. If you go in this folder, PDMP Mentor Program, you'll see a short video on, actually, I'll just go in there and show it to you, on Dr. Corcoran and I did about what it's all about, and then explains how it works. And then in here is the application. It's nothing big. The application will take you 5 minutes. It's basically so we have your name and email address and kind of find out where you are in the program. And then this thing, we call it a syllabus. This will kind of give you an idea of what we cover during that process. And there's also milestone charts. We talked about that. You talked about that earlier today. There's a sample in there of what it looks like for a pre-dissertation student. So all you need to do is A, be interested in doing it. 2, be about halfway through your didactic courses. So, have 6, 7, 8 under your belt, maybe have 6, 7, 8 left. You already met one of the requirements, which is to be at one of these residencies. And then it helps if you have already taken the Journeys class and the Research Methods class, but you can take those along with this as well. Is there anything else? Randy, anything else you would recommend for them as far as when to start this? Because you're going to have, let's see, you'll have what, 2 terms after this one where you'll be doing both didactic and the DST courses? Is that what we figured out?
Yes, so 2 terms left. I think I came into the PDMP a little bit late, but it's still. So another thing I would say is that one of the great benefits is the usage of Discord is really, really nice. It's such a ubiquitous platform, and you can just get work back and forth really quickly that way, and send a message, ask a question, or ask another student. It's really awesome. I'm asking not to get kicked out of it, so I can.
Yeah, we're about to boot him out. He's beyond us in the pre-dissertation stage. He's got to move on. Time to go, Randy. We'll keep you for a couple more weeks. But if you have any questions about that, our contact information is in there under the pre-dissertation in that folder, and reach out to us. We're happy to talk to you about it. We can show you around the Discord, show you what that's about. So reach out. Any other questions, concerns? Comment?
Dr. Tucker,
Yes.
I guess I'm in the same boat, I guess, as Brandy is, but I'm a little bit later than he was. So I only have one more class to take, and then I'm going to be in the DST courses section. So can I apply for this now to get in?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah, so you're taking a class now, and then you've got one more class in 2B?
Yes, I'm taking 2 this semester, and then I'll have just one more, but I was just informed that the class that's listed on my degree plan, y'all don't offer no more. So I'm going to wait to hear back from Michelle to see what class I'm supposed to take now, because I've completed all the other requirements.
Perfect. Actually, this is the perfect time. If you'll go in there and fill out that application, or just shoot me an email, we'll get you going on it right away. We're kind of just finishing up this one. We've got a couple weeks left, and before we start the next one, but we just had another student, the same thing happened, and we're working with him now. So we would be more than happy to get you started. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Any other questions about that, how it works? All righty. So I'm just going to wrap up everything really quick and then turn it over to Dr. Burchell. Main things to get out of today: be willing to put in the work and accept feedback, and you will do just fine. You're going to get lots and lots and lots of feedback. And remember, we only have one goal, and that's to get you out of here with that DBA after your name. That is our only goal. So when we're giving you tons of feedback, it's not because we get some kind of, satisfaction. It's not like we call each other and go, oh, I got another one I redlined. That's not it. We want you to have the best possible product that you have. We want to be proud of it. We want you to be proud of it. You represent our entire university. I mean, this is the top of the educational ladder, and we're going to do everything in our power to make sure that it's exactly where it needs to be. Make a plan and follow your plan. This ain't easy, folks. It's going to require help from your family, from your friends. You may be telling your kids, look, we're eating Fruity Pebbles again tonight, kids. I gotta work on my dissertation. And we have a lot of resources, but you may need more help than we have available, and that's okay. Talk to your chair and they can make recommendations. If you need to hire a statistician to kind of walk you through the stats part, that's okay. If our writing coach isn't enough to help you with APA, there's some editorial services that can help you. So the only question we can't answer for you is the ones that you don't ask. So make this a priority. You will get through it. It's a difficult process, but it's also a lot of fun. And I can't tell you, almost every student, I think, who has gotten in touch with me after they're done is like, I feel so lost now. Like, I don't know what to do. And I'll say, write a journal article. And they're like, okay. And then they go and publish in our journal. So it gets in your blood, this whole research thing. And it's a great experience. We're here to help you. And if there's anything you need, you can reach out to anybody in this team, and we are more than happy to help you. All right, Dr. Burchell, I lied. I said I wasn't going to talk long, and there I go again. So I will turn it over to you.
That's okay. That's okay. Lots of good information. Christina got her question answered. If you're not sure where to find your degree action plan, definitely reach out to Michelle and she will help you. She'll explain it to you. So this wraps up our day-long residency. I believe you will still receive an email from Dr. Jafke if you're in the 8304 class. Those who have attended multiple times probably will not, but if you're in the 8304, she will likely reach out to you. You will also receive a survey from Michelle. We just want to make sure we get your feedback about this residency and how well it was for you, how much you liked it, if there's anything that needs to be improved, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. So to sum up, or to finish out the day, I want to thank you for attending our Journeys residency. We hope you enjoyed it. We hope you got something out of it. We hope that you learned some new things that will make your journey easier and your dissertation completion faster. We invite you back in September though, because we did give you a lot of information. And I think this is something that you need to hear multiple times in order for it to sink in. And you'll be further along at the time. You can't pay attention to all pieces at all times, right? And I want to remind you of some things. None of us are perfect, okay? None of us are perfect. We all have our weaknesses. Whatever yours is, figure it out, do some self-reflection, figure out what your weakness is, and get help for it, okay? If you need an editor to help you with your paper, fine. And like Dr. Tucker said, if you need a statistician, then get one, okay? They can't run your stats for you, but they can run the stats and you can compare them to yours to make sure they're correct. I did that when I was getting my PhD. I was so afraid that I was going to make a mistake, and my chair was not a statistician. So I hired one to make sure I was doing the right thing because I didn't want anybody to call me out. Okay. So whatever your weakness is, you know, another one of mine is passive voice. I hate it. I have a terrible time writing an active voice. So regardless, whatever it is, get help for it. Okay. Get a tutor, get what you need. Okay. Also, you are paying for this degree. We have lots of resources, much more than 3 years ago. So take advantage of every one of them. Okay. You're paying for this, so you might as well. Okay. And I want to mention that the dissertation is like a puzzle. Okay. It's a piece at a time, one component at a time, one chapter at a time. And so if you just make sure you keep moving forward and adding to your components, one day you'll have a fully created puzzle. Okay. It'll be done. It'll be complete. And you'll be very proud. Okay. And I also want to remind you, this is something that I say, you do not have to be a genius to earn a doctorate. You don't have to be a genius. Okay. You just have to be tenacious. Okay. You have to want it, and you have to be able to set goals, and you have to make yourself achieve those goals. Okay. So again, you don't have to be a genius. You just have to be tenacious. Okay. Dr. Tucker, do you have any final words?
I don't think so. If you all do need any additional questions about that predis, please reach out to me. I can't speak. I'll put my email in the chat just in case.
Very good. Thank you. Dr. Corcoran, I see you're here. Do you have any final words? I think she's there.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Awesome. Okay. So my best advice to y'all is when you get assigned to your chair, just make sure that you work very closely, keep in contact with that person. You're going to get through it much faster if you work cooperatively with your chair. So
Absolutely. Thank you. Dr. Guaco, are you there? Did you want to add something? Okay, I'm not sure he's here. He was listed twice. So Okay, well, that's it then. Thank you, everybody, and we'll see you next time. Have a great rest of your weekend, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Take care.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.